the leaves blowing outside.
Yeah. A little bit of Foley.
Let's all give our good wind impressions. All right, yeah.
That's your wind impression?
All right, yeah. Well, yeah, whispers.
Mhm.
The wind whispering.
Oh, I see.
Welcome to episode 3.
Episode 3?
Oh,
Yeah.
we're just going to start right off.
Yeah.
Are we? I don't know.
We have a backlog of conversation.
Whenever we
can
want
talk about furries more.
Whenever we want to introduce
I'm
it.
cool with talking about furries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's bring up some news, but all right,
Are you
let's talk about
joking or do you
furries, I
honestly
guess.
have more to say? Because I have a lot to say about furries.
He has a ton to say about furries. Like, we're not going to get through this episode
Are you sure?
with my talking.
Is
talking
this the
topic.
rabbit hole? Just furries?
It's going to be a furry rabbit hole, yes. Like, inside, you open it up, you spread in, you think it's going to be clean. No, it's furry as fuck.
I don't know. Furries are just... It's a fandom that it confuses me.
There's a lot of misconceptions with the furry fandom.
I believe it, yeah.
I'm fine with it. I'm fine with people. I'm just like, let me.
I don't understand where, like, where people get the idea that furries are all, like, sexual, and, like, that is the point
That they
of
like
being
to
a furry.
fuck.
And that is completely untrue. That is, like, a section. That's saying, like, every person who watches anime likes hentai. And that is completely untrue.
Yeah.
I mean, some people.
No, I got you. Well, I always thought it was, like, maybe, like, a misconception of, like, from a lot of BDSM, where they have them, like, get on all fours and whipping and all this
Maybe.
other stuff. And people just associate that actions of being treated like an animal and like someone wanting to be treated like an animal to someone who wants to be or feels like they are very animal-esque in their
Well,
persona.
Even a lot of the time, most furries don't believe that they are another animal.
Right.
Like, most furries are like, I think making characters and watching cartoons with anthropomorphic animals is cool.
Right.
Like, that's...
But I can imagine that's where the sexual like thing comes from. It is a misconception of
yeah, and
furries
there's a lot of media that portrays that, so like it just keeps it going. There's a lot of bad like CSI episodes and stuff like that just make it worse. So yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, I know nothing about that world.
I was getting into it for a while. One thing, I kind of just got sick of the culture more than anything. Like, I respect a lot of them for who they are, but like it's very immature, a lot of it, and that's what I was just like, all right, I'm kind of done.
I can
over
understand
this.
that.
Yeah, but I like a lot of it. I think anthropomorphic characters are awesome.
I mean, it's been around since forever. Ancient Egyptians, they had a lot of anthropomorphized scripture and iconography in their culture.
Yeah, it's been around forever. It's cool. Also, like, furry characters are easier to draw, and that's why a lot of like younger kids get into it initially.
That makes sense. Yeah.
It's like you can get away with a lot more bad drawings if it's not a human face. Human faces are really hard.
Yeah.
I struggle with them. I draw multiple times like a week. It's very common for me to draw every day, and I struggle a lot still.
So I've been holding on.
Episode 3 finally.
Episode 3.
NogCast.
Finally, episode 3.
Took us like fucking weeks to even get to this one.
10 billion
Yeah,
years.
like we started like it feels like a month and a half ago, or like.
And then
2
like
months.
these episodes will not release in the same time order that it took.
No, definitely.
Because we're not releasing any of the first 3 until this one's finished.
Yeah.
And even then, I think are we going to release all 3 or just sparse them out?
All 3 initial, like right off the bat.
So, like I've tried to say 2 times. So I've been sitting on this news article for like, for a while now. And I thought it would be really interesting, especially for us.
Mm-hmm.
God, I don't even know how fucking old it is. Okay, on the 9th of this month.
Okay.
So
It's been a little while.
Yeah.
Today's the 21st of current month.
Of current month. So the Tokyo Metropolitan Government announced, last week from that week, that it will begin its Anime Overseas Expansion Step Up program that will focus on marketing anime to the foreign market. The program will include and consist of seminars and workshops and will culminate in a contest for an anime pitches.
So they're basically Japan is trying to get other countries excited about making their own anime.
Yeah.
America's like, I got this.
Right. Prizes will be cash awards and the opportunity for the pitch to be exhibited at next year's MIFA, March International Film Animation, but it's in French. But I don't want to try and say it in French.
France makes some good anime, apparently.
Yeah, there's one I want to see. I can't remember.
Makes some good anime too.
So the seminars will run from August to October, so we're still pretty good, and we'll focus on outlining the foreign anime market. The workshops will take place in November and focus on improving the presentation of pitches. The Tokyo Anime Pitch Grand Prix will begin next February and seek anime pitches. The grand prize winner will receive 1 million yen. How much?
February?
Yeah.
I think we can pull that off.
February of next year.
How much USD is 1 million yen?
Isn't 1 yen like a
that's
penny?
about $10,000.
Okay. Yeah.
I believe.
It's about 9,000, with 4 other winners receiving 500,000 yen, about 4,500. And their pitches will be exhibited at the MIFA 2020. MIFA will run by and concurrently with the Annecy International Anime Film Festival. So yeah, thought that would be really cool if we could actually try and do a pitch for fucking all the ideas we have.
Yeah, we have a few ones that are pretty solid. I really want to do a foosball shonen.
A foosball shonen.
Yes. Oh. It's actually started from my wife because she's really good at foosball. Like, she has no reason to be good at it, but she beats everybody.
Doesn't her work have like a...
They have a tournament every year.
They have a foosball tournament, and they actually like get people flown out to their head office to like play.
Yeah,
for the offices.
She didn't make the cut though, not because she's not skilled, but because she didn't get her name on the list in time, and they were considering her as a backup, but it didn't work out. But she beats most people without, like, she just never really had any training. She's just naturally skilled at it, especially a particular shot. So she's not great at passing. I'm much better at passing and control than she is, but she beats me every time anyway because she has this one ridiculous like snapshot. And that's basically what the character would be, and what they would do is like essentially her. She just has this one shot and she beats everybody until she comes up against somebody who's actually skilled.
Right.
So
we've been working on like the story.
Yeah, I actually, since the last time we talked, I've come up with a lot. I feel like much more solid reasons for her to, for her to do things.
We'll have to work through and talk about that.
We'll talk about that later. And then I have been drawing a little bit more and working on panels.
So he's doing storyboard. Lily's doing main art, and then I'm doing color.
Yeah, color and maybe typesetting.
Yeah.
What do you need for the pitch?
And backgrounds.
For the pitch,
is it just an idea, or do you need like concept art? And
I mean, there's probably a lot of like concept art, maybe like a first like episode or like paneling.
Or one shot.
Yeah, like a one shot. And I mean, that's what the whole thing is about, is to kind of go over like what's required of these pitches and to move forward with it. And I bet you like if it's like good enough and it goes into the film festival, and there's probably going to be a lot of anime studios are going to be there and be like, oh yeah, you know what? Let's try and pick that up.
I wonder if there's a limitation on to how many you can pitch.
Submit, because I want to pitch then the background character of my own story.
I'm the background character of my own life or something like that.
Well, the title's gone around. It's the general idea is, and I think I've talked to you about this one.
Solid.
Yeah, you've talked to me about it.
Yeah, that one I've just been like always constantly thinking that one, or
we did a decent amount of work on that. Too.
That or the I don't know. I think the Devil Angel one would be.
Yeah, that one's a newer one. That one, yeah.
That one's still some work on it. I feel like that. Like I've been like thinking like that'd be cool. It's like a book or something.
As like a
light novel
or something.
Yeah, light novel with like some anime pictures like dropped in there randomly.
Yeah, probably just like.
Because I mean that's what light novels usually do, is they'll have like just like a page of like some really good art, and then
I can help you write. I can help you write a light novel if you want.
Yeah,
I'm pretty decent with dialogue.
I'm horrible at writing.
Cool.
I'm just an idea person. I'm like I know the direction I want to go. I can get the general setup.
To Abby for editing, because she's good at editing and she has a pretty extensive vocabulary.
Yeah.
But she just kind of sucks at plot, so we'll see.
Yeah, it's like I'm like ish okay with plot. If I'm working with someone, like I feel like I can work a lot better and get a lot further when I'm working with someone, rather than just trying to pitch off the ideas that I have myself.
Right. Man, what I would really like to do is just have like multiple sources of like I just want to put stuff out, and it would be really nice to have a few things that are going well.
Just like a bunch of things and it's like accumulated all into one. Like, haha.
Sort of.
I make a company now.
Yeah, kind of. Well, they always say like millionaires have 7 sources of income, and I want to build that 7. But like, I'm also thinking like I'm not really expecting any of these to have any sort of income. That's the thing. I just want
7 projects.
seven projects that.
Well, I guess like leads
successful.
into like the first episode. It's like I think that like for me, it's like just don't think about the profit from it. Just do it
Oh yeah.
to do it.
Yeah.
Get it done. Get it out there. Get it work on it. Because like
The only
if it's
thing-
good enough and people really like it, either you make profit off it, or if it's not good enough, then you're probably going to learn why and then work on it again.
I only have one project I'm working on right now that the intent is profit, and that's essentially making art and furniture. So I'm accumulating tools and trying to get some clientele. I made some new drawstring bags recently.
Yeah. Did you finish those up for the?
I did. I finished them up pretty quick. I only sold them for about $30 a piece, but I'm pretty happy with that. With that cost. I have some new ideas for designs, but I would really like to start making furniture. So I need to get a table saw.
That reminds me, I have embroidery updates for you.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I do.
Embroidery, because I want to make hats.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like a hat with
It's
our icon.
much more simple than you would think, because really you just need to kind of come up with whatever the design is,
Mm-hmm.
colors, and then size, and then just hand it off to my connections. And then, it'd be pretty easy. They did say the maximum size is 9 inches by 9 inches, and depending on the material, that'll cost you about $30 to $40.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, that's like regular hat, but I'll have to buy the hat initially, right?
Yeah, you'll have to provide the material
Okay.
and the artwork you want to put on there.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be no problem.
Mhm.
I want to make a couple NogCast hats. I think that'd be pretty sweet.
That'd be baller.
Someone
Have a short run.
The guy who did our
Very short
icon.
run.
He's like I was looking at this on like mugs and I was like this would look great. So and I was like, oh man, Dominic would love that.
I do love that.
He would love just to have a NogCast mug and just.
Yeah, I'm kind of obsessed with mugs. I have like, my goal is to never have 2 of the same mug, essentially. So I have a number of very different. I have like, the 2 of the ones that I have that are the most similar. One of them it has like a bunch of computer science stuff on it, and another one is all chemistry.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. They're kind of all over the place. I have a second one that's like a chemistry mug, but it's a beaker with a squid on it. I love mugs. I plan on having like a whole display case full of mugs.
Nice.
Everyone can have their own. It's like you pick that one.
You put that
You can use that anytime you come over.
downstairs in your really fancy sitting room.
Mm-hmm.
My massive collection of mugs.
Yep.
So.
Was there more information on that?
No. That was
That was
about
it.
that was about it. I think that's all that's come out. I have a link and I can share that with you
Yeah, I would like to learn more about it.
later. Yeah. I was pretty stoked about that. I was like, that could be a pretty.
I'll try to
Cool.
get a link to it in the show notes as well.
So, the main topic for today, which this got brought up by a coworker, and I mean, I've talked to you guys both about this already, because shit happened and I couldn't keep it secret. So, I guess this is going to be a very rough question, but I think you both already know kind of like the main topic and idea and stuff like that. But the question was asked is specifically was towards anime and is like, why does taking an anime to live action usually suck? You know, and I think we can spread this on to really just like any media.
Like gaming and
Well, yeah, so a video game to a live action, or not even just.
telling a story in a different medium.
Yeah, it's not even like it doesn't have to be live action. It could be manga to live action. It could be live action to comic. It can be comic to cartoon. I mean, why? Because I mean, we can probably think of 1,000,001 failures and just as many successes within those. So why do those successes work? Why do those failures happen? I mean, kind of what can people learn from those, or I guess like what can people expect to like maybe not look so deep into some of these things? Like I mean, we'll kind of discuss that, but yes, that's kind of the main topic I kind of want to just go over.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys have any thoughts you want to start off with. I know
I have a jumbling of thoughts. I took notes for the session,
Go ahead.
and I will promptly not read any of them.
Do you think?
What, I go first?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're so quiet.
Less anime focused, but my big thing is like, let's take The Lion King, for example, because that just came out, the new quote unquote live action remake or whatever. And
that's a stretch.
It's been bombing at the box office because,
Really?
yeah.
Oh, yeah. I did hear about that.
A lot of people are saying it's really just a shot-for-shot remake of the original hand-drawn animation from the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And, on one hand, you kind of have to give the artist and all the visual effects teams a huge amount of praise because...
Oh, yeah, props on them.
Yeah, it's so cool that we can get to a point where something is even being debated as like, is this live action? Is this animation?
I think that's like the one part that isn't being dogged on is how it looks.
Yeah,
like
it looks
the looks for
amazing.
it. People are like, this looks amazing. This is wonderful.
Except for the fact that you can't really portray emotion.
Yeah.
Right. And then, I mean, that's the
That's
fall
the
of...
one visual thing about it that I had heard.
But I mean, I guess that's less on like them, like you weren't able to, but like more or less on like, this was not this was not what you should have been trying to do with this type of thing.
Yeah.
Like, they did what they were supposed to, which is make these animals from this animated 2D thing look real.
Yeah, that's probably
and make the environment look, and that was the poor choice of trying to do that with that. But for what they did, visual effects and sound and all that stuff, they did great. It was just the idea of like trying to transfer it from this one-to-one shot of something that was very, like you said, like a lot of emotions and things were shown in the faces of these characters, and then they can't do it. Like I always think back, I think of was it the bird? What's the bird's name?
The bird?
Zazu, who has like this beak, hard bone beak, and then once you get to like the animated, like he does move it around a little bit, is a bit more movable. But once you get into that live action, like, oh no, this is a bone beak and it does not move. You're just up and down, up and down. Yeah. It's just like,
Yeah, or with the lion's face, like, this is a great picture where it's like all the different emotions of Simba from the 1990 animation, and it's a very good graph.
All the drawn things, and then they show the new one.
Yeah, and then they show all the animation or all the emotion of Simba from the 2019 thing. Is literally just the same like blank lion face repeated over and over and over again.
Just like a different angles
that's
and
just
stuff.
That's not how animals
emote.
Yeah, that's not how they emote.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, my thing, you go back to it, is like, why make that? I know Disney's kind of, you can kind of look into it like Disney's trying to either maintain their copyright ownership over this story or these materials or whatever, and then or maybe they're just trying to go on the trend of like, we're doing all this live action remakes, so we have to remake The Lion King.
Yeah.
So
I don't think it has anything to do with their copyright. I don't think they need to produce anything to maintain their copyright.
I know it's been the rumor that's floating around. I don't know if it's true or not.
Yeah, sorry, I have something stuck in my throat.
Well, I think it's just a big like, hey, let's make more money.
Yeah.
Well, because they've already done like the vault thing so many times now, like the re-release.
It's coming out of the vault. It's like, was it ever in there to begin with?
Well, I watched something and explained I can't remember. I'm not even gonna try it, but like they explained what the vault was and what its importance was. But it was a big, more of a money grab thing for what it was. But I think they've kind of run out of like, they can't, like, everything's been re-released out of the vault like 8 billion fucking times now, and they just can't do it anymore. So they just need to re-come up with things. And what it first started off with wasn't Beauty and the Beast. There's Cinderella. It was Cinderella.
Wasn't it the Jungle Book? Wasn't that the first?
Nope. Cinderella, Beauty and the Beast, Jungle Book.
I do not even remember Cinderella.
Yeah, no one does. I was talking to someone at work about this. I was like, yeah, no, Beauty and the Beast was the first one, because I knew that one was like one of the earlier ones. And it's like, well, no, Cinderella was. I was like, oh yeah, there was a fucking Cinderella one. Which I guess like you can argue that Maleficent was more the first one, but I feel like that one's less so because it's a side story towards another character.
Maleficent was an original story.
It was an original story, but it was the first live action or it was one of the earlier of these like set of live actions of an animated character, and I think that's where it was like that one. But I feel like that one's separate. I feel like that's how Aladdin should have been. It should have been Jasmine. It just got that way.
Sure. What do you think in general, like these media things failing?
Let me put it this way. I've come up with a system so I can judge it, and how do I feel about some of this kind of stuff? And the research I did for this episode is more so about remakes in general and some of the trends that have been going on with Hollywood. Like a lot of this stuff just kind of feels like a cash grab or unoriginality. And even though you're blowing millions and millions of dollars on the budget to up the visual effects, are you really crafting a piece of art? You know, you're just retelling the same story. So like with the Batman Begins reboot, it's a shot for shot remake of the original movie, but they're upping all of the production value, the lighting, the line work, the animation. Hopefully it's going to be really good, but you know, if they're selling that thing for, it's like, hey, we're re-releasing this movie, give us money, it'd be like, I appreciate what you guys did, but I don't really feel comfortable like pitching in money for something that I've already seen, especially something that I own on VHS.
It'd be really nice to see a Batman movie that doesn't start with his parents getting killed.
Yeah.
Like, how many times are we going to be retold Batman's
or
origin?
Watch the pearls break off of Martha's.
It's like, that was one thing that was really nice about the newer Spider-Man movies is like, you already know. You know what happened.
Yeah, Into the Spider-Verse did a really good job with that. Just like...
Well, it was totally different, though.
Well, they were kind of making fun of the fact that, like, every intro, you kind of learn about it. So that's why they did, like, a quick thing for everyone. Like, you already fucking know this shit. We're going through... What was it? Batman v Superman. They kind of just, like, gave you the Batman after, like, a while into his career stuff, too, and he's older. So, like, they kind of touched up on his parents' death and stuff like that, but it wasn't, like, a huge focus. It was more just, like, his constant flashback shit that he has, but it wasn't bad.
First Spider-Man with...
Tobey Maguire.
No.
Andrew Garfield.
The newest one. What's his name?
Tom Holland.
Tom
Holland, yeah. It was just, like...
they didn't even...
Like, you know this shit.
Bring it up.
Yeah. It's like, you just... Yeah, you know
who Spider-Man is.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, yeah, that's
one of the most famous
stories and that's not
superhero.
What is it?
Like, you know.
So I guess an anime equivalent that'd be Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood to Full Metal Alchemist.
Yeah,
because Full Metal Alchemist, they did the intro. They kind of gave you all that beginning stuff, the beginning of them becoming part of the military dogs and stuff, and going through. And then Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, which was just the remaking of it that was more close to the manga, because the first one had caught up to the manga and then was told, just finish off the ending however you want. And then they did. And then the author's like, all right, cool. But now I want it to end with the way I wanted it, you know? And so then Brotherhood literally just skipped the first chunk of the series based on the fact that you already seen it in Full Metal Alchemist.
Or they repeated it because the entire first season of Brotherhood is the entire series from the original. They quickly run through it, but like they do skip quite a bit of stuff through there, and it's just like you just already know, and they're not going to touch up on it as much. They need to touch up on any parts that have certain characters, like when they go to whatever that desert town is at the beginning and stuff like that, but they quickly run through that really quickly. I think you actually get more of the aftermath of that rather than the build up to what had caused that whole scenario. But they're rushing through that to tell the alternate version of the story, you know, now that the original creator has the rights, for lack of a better term, to flesh out the rest of the story, you know. So they're rushing through all the stuff that you've already seen for people who might have skipped the original story, but also to you know, for people who haven't seen it, they're trying to touch up on the stuff. So it's kind of like this double-edged sword of like,
it keeps it from feeling like completely empty, like keeps you from being confused.
Exactly.
I remember being a little confused because I didn't know that break had happened. I thought initially Brotherhood was like the next season, and I was like, didn't all this stuff already happen? So I didn't understand that when I initially was watching it.
But Brotherhood, I think, is a good example because they're going back through to tell a alternate narrative, and you know, they're not trying to retread old ground. They're trying to actually tell something new, bring in new characters. It'd
be really cool if they did that with Soul Eater.
Yeah,
I would be so down for that.
I would too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I was trying to. It's like someone's like, "Oh man, like the anime and the manga like suck. They're like so similar." And I just wish they would have ended it differently. I'm like, you didn't read the fucking manga, did you?
Yeah.
Like they are not similar. Like the anime stops halfway through the manga, and even then, the ending is very different. She's like, well, no, but they like still just like fight off the Kishin in the sea battle. I'm like, yeah, but when they do it in the anime, it's a fucking Harry Potter 1 ending of like, it was love all along, Maka, and it's like, no, fuck that shit. Where in the manga, it was like, oh, we've all become super bad fucking ass.
They're all gods,
and then,
essentially.
oops, we didn't defeat the Kishin, but he ate the moon.
Yeah.
It's like they don't even really win, at least as far as I remember.
They technically win.
They technically win because they stop, but like he eats the fucking moon and it's just done.
Yeah, no,
and then it's just like
awesome.
It's like, you know,
the very, very end is a little strange.
Yeah,
you'd have to read it to understand.
But yeah, no,
and so still wouldn't understand.
But it gets super badass. And it's like, no, they're not the same. No.
Yeah, no, it's pretty sweet though. The manga's really solid.
Right.
So I guess that's the thing. Is like, so with these new things of remakes and reboots. So I guess like the worst thing that they can do is go 1 for 1.
I disagree. I feel like there is.
Well, and I was asking this more as a question, not as a statement.
Yeah. So there's 2 options. If you're making it in a new media, it needs to either be 1 for 1, or it needs to be completely different. So you can't have that middle ground because people will get upset. Even the 1 for 1 people tend to get upset because they're like, oh, we wanted something new. But if you give them something new that isn't new enough or different enough, people will get upset.
So yeah, it's my thing is that hits that of they didn't change it enough, but trying to stay similar. It was like Aladdin. Aladdin had some good parts to it. It's not a completely shit movie or anything like that, but there's just certain things where like, we're going to keep with this, but we're also going to want to try and be new. They had a struggle of when they were trying to stick with the old Aladdin, the animated version, versus when they were trying to be new and inventive. Like a big thing with the movie that was really good, which was working out Jasmine's whole story versus making her the object of desire through this whole thing. And this is what it is, like giving her a real part in this story. So like her whole thing is to become the Sultan herself, so she can lead the people in this country and everything like that, and so forth. And then it's just Aladdin's there, still doing his own thing, but you're like less connected to him because it's like he's still just trying to marry this girl, and his all of his reasons are like less so, and you're like,
So the thing that's important is you can either remake the story or you can remake the theme. So the theme being like the overarching, what is the reason for this movie to exist? What are we learning? What's the point of the movie? So one remake I liked that a lot of people hated was the Karate Kid, because it was very different from the original Karate Kid. However, the theme of Karate Kid was the same, which is why I think it was a great remake. It's like it's hitting the same emotional points as the original film while still being its own thing. And I think it was great, and I think more people should appreciate it. But people didn't like it because it has Jaden Smith.
Okay. I was trying to remember which. I didn't. I like the Karate Kid.
A lot of people hated it, but I think they just wanted it to be more like the original movie. When like they were remaking the movie or remaking the story, but not remaking the theme. But another movie that remakes the theme. Or one movie that keeps the theme but remakes the story, I'm getting mixed up. The other way around is Aladdin. So the theme of Aladdin is now different, but the story is essentially the same.
It's essentially the same, and it's like you could tell like someone was really fighting super fucking hard to change it, and then they're like, no, because like Will Smith and Jasmine, all that part was good. Seriously, was Aladdin. It wasn't the acting or anything like that. It was just how the story was being told, especially like they're doing the whole, you never had a friend like me thing, and then like there's parts of that you're like, why'd you change that, or something minor, or like how he tricks him into giving him an extra wish was kind of like pointless. It was like that was something that didn't really need to change, that didn't affect everything. It actually kind of makes it a little bit worse if that's how you tricked him. And there's a couple other things where it's like the tricks that the genie doesn't make as much sense.
Right.
But the comedy they did was great, and then they tried to do like some of the CG was bad. Like they kept doing this mirror thing, and the mirrors weren't working, and they kept trying to make it work. Or they had Aladdin parkouring, and like from far away, and you could see him parkouring across buildings, and you're like, that's bad CG.
It just looks bad.
It was too like it just reminds me of Mr. Fantastic, like leaping across buildings in like live action. It's just very like elastic and
interesting,
jelly looking, and it was not. It was too good. It was too fluid. It wasn't actually someone.
It didn't look like like someone was
parkouring.
Struggling.
Yeah, like he was doing like a front flip
there
and
was
stuff.
No effort,
yeah, no, and you're like, oh, that. Yeah, was there gravity, normal gravity? Was that moon gravity affecting
That's
it?
actually kind of what I disliked about a lot of the fight scenes in the Star Wars prequels. Is there is no. It didn't look hard.
Yeah,
they're just going through the motions.
Well, yeah, they had a wire fighting team.
Right.
Which it's kind of funny because I agree with you. It looks way too fluid. I think George Lucas's intent was to make it feel more like a dance rather than an actual fight.
Yeah.
Which they kind of captured that, but at the same time, they've been rehearsing the stuff so much, so it loses that gritty edge of danger.
It doesn't feel like a fight scene like
Yes.
other movies feel like fight scenes.
Yeah, and I'm not a big fan of the new trilogy, but I think that's one thing they're nailing with the new trilogy is it feels gritty.
Yeah.
It feels like there are real stakes.
Yeah, a lot of it. Yeah, there are some parts that are
like the
kind
whole
of dumb and
the
not
whole
so much.
huge fighting scene at the end of the last movie where it was
With
her and Kylo.
Rey, Kylo, and the Red Guard.
Yeah, like it was like there was a lot of bad parts, but like a lot of the earlier fighting where she's unskilled and Kylo's very emotional, those are great because it feels like there's stakes. It feels like they're struggling. Feels like there's some weight behind the hits. Where like it didn't feel like there was any real threat level in the prequels during any of the fights.
Yeah,
like they're doing these flips that are like 4 stories high. It's like why do you bother fighting on the ground if you can just fly?
Yeah, but I guess so. Going back, something I was talking to someone about it. I was talking to a lot of people about this and just trying to get like different ideas and stuff from people. Because a lot of stories, I mean, just every story is just a retelling of like breaking it down to the basic skeleton. It's just the same story over and over again that we're telling. They have very different, like similar structures to a lot of like the hero's journey. It's
Yeah,
like
that's a
big
common thing.
It's like a lot of stories follow the structure, and it's not like. I mean, we watch these movies over and over again, and yet we kind of understand where they're going and what's happening. It's more or less like we know we get the beginning, and we can probably guess what the end is going to be for the most part. It's just that in between, and like, yeah, you may know all the separate steps, but how do you get to that step? What happens in that step? And it's like learning or figuring out what's the best way to do that. And you're really it's just a huge magic trick.
Yeah.
Of telling the story and showing people like, yeah, you think you know what this trick is, but we're still going to trick you somehow.
Yeah, subverting expectations.
Yeah, and so it's just taking, like magicians all the time, it's like they're always reusing old tricks now and utilizing your expectations because you already know how this story or how this trick plays out, and then redoing it because you are looking over at this spot or you really are paying attention. And now
Penn and Teller are really good at doing that. They'll literally show you how a trick is done and then flip it on you.
I just rewatched their Saturday Night Live thing when they were younger.
Yeah.
You seen that one where they're hanging upside down?
Which one? They do a lot of stuff like that.
Well, no, I mean, that's what they got really big for. Was during the Saturday Night Live.
Okay.
It was filmed live, and so they spent this whole time and rehearsing it. And so they're upside down through this whole thing, but they have the camera right side
Yeah,
up.
they have it flipped.
Yeah, and so they're doing all this magic trick, and he's like throwing things from one hand to the other to make it look like it's weightless, and they're making things float and stuff, but it's just falling through gravity and stuff. And so it was a really big thing that they're really known for on their earlier ones. I got them really big.
Yeah.
But no, I was just watched Penn and Teller stuff yesterday. So
Yeah,
They're
they're
great.
great.
I like them a lot.
but yeah, no. So it's just a huge magic trick when you're retelling or remaking something, or you're just coming up with a new story or idea and moving it.
What I think is important to maintain when you're creating something, and it's like, what is the reason for this thing being created?
Yes.
If it's not a good reason, don't make it. And I feel like a lot of remakes don't have a good reason. Their reason is like, oh, we need to remake this. The reason isn't, oh, we need to tell this important story. You know, that's where a lot of them fall flat, especially like video game to film. They die pretty hard because they have no real reason to make it. They want to make it because people want the film
Or money.
or money. Yeah, they don't want to make it because they have a story to tell.
Well, it's like I'm want to be very hopeful for this one of the next remakes that they're doing, which is
Mulan.
yeah, because I talk about it all the time.
I don't.
Yeah.
I get where you're coming from. It's just I have no faith in Disney left.
No, I mean that's fine. I'm just saying like from like a thing. It's like they're doing it live action. I think this is one of the only ones where I'm like I really want to see it live action because there's a whole lot of fighting and war style in there. I mean they're taking out Mushu and a lot of those very like things that they just really can't do well. Yeah, they're taking out. Yeah, from what I hear, like Mushu's not going to be in there.
Why?
Because he's too much of a character.
Because they're remaking the theme and not remaking the story.
Yeah, so it's he's too much of a character. I mean, he was more of like he was their genie. You know, it's that comical thing that kind of makes those silly references and stuff. It's a voice that you understand. It's a comedian's voice and stuff.
I feel like with these Disney princess remakes, the two that would work best in live action are Mulan and Pocahontas.
Yeah.
Those are like those are the two like solid ones that I feel like you can get away with making a good movie about. But the other ones I'm like maybe not so much.
But it's like I think everyone in there appropriate ethnicity. They're not like recasting, redoing. They're not like going to be whitewashing everything and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They're going to be showing these battle scenes real. I think they're also taking out the main Hun too. They're changing him up.
Really?
Yeah. I think yet again because he's too much of a character and to try and recreate him the same way.
I feel like he could,
would just be weird.
I feel like they could pull it off with him very similar.
They
Just
probably
like
could, and
big,
they probably might be.
brooding.
And yet again, this is just what I've heard.
I can't think of anybody who
I think
would
that's
fit.
well, most of it. But I think it'd be really cool to see like the ancient cities and like all the like the structure of the cities, the way they're doing it. I mean, they're keeping with some of the songs. A lot of the movement through the movie is very similar with it, but yeah, they're definitely changing it up, and figuring out. I think this was like we want to make this movie live action, so what's going to be the best way to actually make it live action rather than just like I mean there might be a different reason, but for me it's like that seems like a better way to look at it is like looking at like what do we need to change, what's not going to work in a live action, and actually taking that into account to still try and tell the story the best way, but also taking out what you know is just not going to work.
I would really like to see Mulan made by a Chinese company. I feel like that would be really cool. Just like the way they film things and how story works in those
like
films.
a Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Yeah, if it was made by like the same people, that would be really interesting. I feel like that would probably work pretty well.
IP Man.
Ip Man?
Is it Ip Man?
It is Ip Man.
Ip Man.
I
American, so
love
happy.
that movie.
I
actually there was a scene, I think it was Ip Man 3, where he fights Mike Tyson, and it's pretty sweet because he's trying to block, and Mike Tyson is just punching him in the arms, and he just doesn't know how to handle it. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, that's pretty cool though. I always appreciate it, man. But I don't know, like Mulan, it's kind of like once you lose faith in the creators or the studio that's making it, I need to see something that will convince me otherwise.
Well, I see
that's fair.
For me, I've come to the point where I just don't give them enough faith for me to lose to not want to see something. Like I don't think of it as
You're like yeah, I'll watch it.
Like I'm looking at it for the movie, and I don't give two shits about Disney. I don't care what they've done and what they've failed on, you know. And I'm not gonna be like, you guys tried, because it's like with the video games and stuff like that. Like a video company will come out with a shit game, sometimes they'll come out with a good game, and it's like I don't put in any expectations of the company themselves, because sometimes it may not be the same people who worked on it. Because you say Disney, they've been failing me, but like who could be working on Aladdin could be a different crew working on Mulan, you know.
Yeah,
and so
actually,
it's like giving.
So Disney kind of owns everything, right? And there are a lot of really good films coming out that are technically owned by Disney. So it's hard to say, but I guess with it's fair to say with the remakes that they've been dropping the ball on that.
Oh yeah, no. Overall, yeah, they've been dropping the ball, and it does suck.
Maybe they're
and
just
it's
getting
like
better.
I think they should just stop overall with how they're doing it. Step back, wait a while, really figure out why aren't some of these working. Which it doesn't help that people keep spending the money to go watch these, because for them, when
they're like, it is working.
Yeah, because they're looking at like regardless of what reviews are coming in or whatever, they look and like, well, yeah, but we still like made a shit ton of profit on this. Like you actually beat out our last movie that we came out with that you said it was way better than this one. So
oh man, I bet
that's a thing.
I bet the Lion King's gonna do really good in China.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, because they tend to be all about the CG.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, though. It's like, that's just motivation for the higher-ups at Disney to be like, I don't really care about reviews. It's raking in a lot of money, so we're just going to keep going.
A lot of movies are geared towards Chinese now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I found out, was it How to Train Your Dragon 3?
Mm-hmm.
Hiccup, at the end of the movie, has a beard. I guess in China, there's a different version where he doesn't have a beard.
Huh.
Because people with beards are not trustworthy, I
Yeah,
guess.
they're degenerates in China.
Yeah, so like, we do that because China is a big market for us.
Localization for every movie is getting better, though, especially from Disney films. I'm sure they have giant crews in every country that does the localization.
Right.
There's a lot of small, specific stuff that's done for Japan as well. Like Wreck-It Ralph was changed. There's a Japanese character in the American version that they changed for whatever reason. There's a lot of little localization stuff that are done in Disney films for other countries.
But yeah, so I guess, so we're talking about like remakes and stuff like that. So from like movie to movie, so same format to the same format, just a different stylized way of doing it. So I guess trying to switch over, let's go, I guess, books to movies.
Books to movies tend to do really well. And in some cases, even better. One of my favorite examples is Fight Club. The book for Fight Club is awful. What's his name?
Brad Pitt.
No. The one who wrote the original book.
I don't know.
I can't think of his name. But he has a very interesting way of writing where he seems to... Chuck Palahniuk, that's his name. He seems to make the writing itself more important than the characters. So the characters tend to switch personalities a lot, and they're very inconsistent. Or the book is really hard to read because the entire thing is written as if it was like a fashion catalog, right? Because the way he wrote it is important. But his concepts are really good, so they make really good movies. So like if you've ever read Fight Club, you should. It's a super short book, and you'll understand what I'm talking about. It's not great, but the movie is awesome. It's definitely like in my top 10, I think, as far as movies go.
Right, but is it good because it followed the original script or deviated from it?
It deviated a lot, and that's why it's good.
Well, and I think that leads into like understanding like they kept the theme, right? The main ideas for
that one, yes. I feel like they were more consistent with the theme than the book was.
Right.
The book established a theme and then deviated from it, where they stayed with the original theme that the book started with.
Right.
A lot of things that people don't understand when that conversion is made between books and movies, because it's like missing something that person really liked. But if you're looking at it objectively as a film, it would be terrible to have. Like if you added Tom Bombadil in the Lord of the Rings movies, they would be terrible.
Oh,
people would not understand. It's like, why is this literal god character here and not doing anything for anybody? Like, it may work for the books because you can explain a lot more. There's a lot more information in books. You can hear people's inner thoughts. You can get a lot more detail in books than you ever can in a movie. So adding certain things would just completely ruin it. It's much harder to explain some detail. It's much harder to explain it in a movie than it is to explain it in a book.
Right.
Yeah. So I was talking to someone about this. I'm going to hate myself. I can keep saying this.
SAO.
No. This episode is I was talking to someone. Last episode was SAO. This episode I was talking to someone. So I was talking to someone, and they were. That was a thing that we came up across, was like understanding for people who are making movies, like when is something good to transfer, when it's not. Like there are parts in books like this person like breathes for like 5 minutes, but like having 5 minutes of breathing on film just doesn't fucking work. Yeah. And you have a lot of like these inner thoughts and a lot of breakdown and stuff in the books, and there's a lot more just standing around and talking. It's like the Harry Potters. They stood around a lot in the books, I guess, but they couldn't have. They did that in the first movie, and they're like, all right, we need to not keep doing this anymore, because the first movie is pretty much a 1-to-1 shot of the book.
The first two were really solid.
But the first movie also, the main climactic scene between Harry Potter and Lord Voldemort was them standing in a room looking at each other the whole fucking time.
Yeah.
And it was just like, all right, that was cool, but we can't keep doing this.
Yeah.
Like, this is not going to keep working for the rest of these films, you know? And so they had to take stuff out. And there's certain characters, I think there's like a house elf or something like that, or a ghost. I can't remember.
It's Dobby, yeah.
No, not Dobby. No, there's another one. They just don't have it in there.
Oh, yes, that would be terrible. I can't think of his name.
But he was like a fucking trickster asshole like guy.
He's a poltergeist, yeah.
Yeah. And so like they just don't have him in here there because for the movies it just wouldn't make sense at all.
Yeah, it would be too much. Like there's a point to where like you can add as much as you can, but adding more would make it worse.
And I guess what and then I guess another thing from like taking things away, I guess Game of Thrones actually has quite a few characters that they just got rid of and or combined into one character because it's going to be a lot easier rather than trying to do the backstories for all these characters and wasting more time on these characters when they can simply just combine them into one and just get them done and over with.
A lot of people get upset at that and they just don't understand. It's like it won't work. Like one of your coworkers was upset that they didn't bring Lady Stoneheart from the books into the show. It's like, all right, if you do that, you're going to have to explain how she came back from the dead, why she wants revenge, what like her motivation, her capabilities. You'd have to explain all of that, and what do you get out of it? You don't get anything. You get a character who is not significantly influential for the main story, so why have them at all?
Right.
And another thing they did in the show that was kind of sucks that they did is they would take unimportant characters that were popular and made them important characters for no real reason. The main one is Bronn.
Oh yeah, Bran.
He was not an important character. He was just like he was a sellsword, and he wasn't in the books for very long. But he literally made it to the last episode. Spoilers. Made it to the last episode of the series, and is this super important dude. Where the original author is like, I don't understand why they did that.
Which one's Bronn again?
He is
it
Tyrion Lannister's bodyguard for a large portion of it.
Oh, okay. He's the one who also taught what's his face how to
fight with his left hand. Yeah, he's the sellsword. I'm pretty sure his name is Bronn. Am I wrong?
I don't know.
I'm fairly certain his name is Bronn.
I don't watch Game of Thrones.
Oh, sorry, I spoiled it.
It's okay.
But yeah, he's a completely non-influential character, but people like him, so they kept it around.
Yeah.
So like, kind of sucks, especially with shows when characters' popularity influence the story and make it a different thing. Like, again, back to Harry Potter, the fact that fans and the directors liked the character Hermione so much and the actress for Hermione so much, they basically combined all the things that Ron does and Hermione does into one character, so Ron's completely pointless. So like the whole thing like that the books portrayed was that yes, she's really smart, but she does really poorly under pressure. Ron's not too smart, but he does extremely well under pressure.
Yeah.
So he's able to be like, hey, assess the situation, do this thing. And she's like, oh yeah, of course. So obvious. But instead in the movie, she's like, I know everything. I am 100% capable.
Super prepared for every situation that comes up.
Right. And then like she's like too pretty a lot of the time. Like that's something that's hard to avoid. But like the scenes in which she does something that makes her attractive to the other characters in the books doesn't make any sense in the movies. They're like, oh my God, she's so beautiful when she's dressed up. It's like, she's kind of beautiful to begin with. So
it's
like,
kind of an odd problem to have, though.
It is, but it happens. It happens a lot when it comes from like books to movies because they want to hire all the most attractive people.
Right.
So.
It's kind of funny that you bring up Harry Potter because a lot of Harry Potter stuff is not critically acclaimed right now. Like, what was the newest movie? The Crimes of
Grindelwald.
Oh,
Yeah.
Did that come out?
Yeah, that's been out for a while. I have it on PlayStation.
I completely missed it.
And everybody said it was a really bad movie, and I watched a couple critiques of it, and there's some valid criticisms. There's some not so valid criticisms lobbed against it, but it's strange to me because Harry Potter is such an iconic transition from book to movie that we grew up with, which I guess is kind of being replaced with Game of Thrones nowadays. But even Harry Potter is still going on to produce new stories and new content. A lot of people are judging it very harshly. I think part of that is due to JK's presence in the fandom.
Yeah.
Well, it's that, and then so I guess like a big thing. I think the biggest thing with the Crimes of Grindelwald that I saw is because there's a big thing of like knowing that like the book universe and the movie universe are different. Kind of like
to some degree, yeah.
Well, and it's like when like there's these reviewers I watch, and they always look at them separately.
Mm-hmm.
They don't think of them as the same thing. They're two different stories that are just very similar.
I do that with basically any remake or conversion.
Yeah.
You have to, especially like comic books to movies. You have to.
Yeah. So they think of it as different things. So, but like the Crimes of Grindelwald was really hard because the movies of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them are more based within the story of the books rather than the movies. Except for this newer one, put them closer to the movies because of like the settings of like Hogwarts and stuff like that. Because they're going to show Hogwarts, so like let's show the same Hogwarts from the Harry Potter movies.
Yeah.
When they're doing that, so then it kind of let that confusion of like, okay, is this now would we consider as part of the movie universe or the book universe? I don't think many people think about that, but that was something that they had their biggest critique about was that portion of it, and they enjoyed it because they enjoyed like going deeper into the lore of everything, and like especially like reading about Dumbledore and Grindelwald and everything like that within their whole story and everything like that. It's always really interesting, especially like looking then into like the Harry Potter movies when you see Grindelwald
All of one time, and then you hear about their story and stuff. You learn a little bit more on that. It's kind of nice to dig a little bit deeper in this other section and kind of like find out more because the lore for it and all the stories for it are really interesting.
I would really like to see more stories that are kind of adjacent or like separate from the Harry Potter stories that are in the same universe, like in the Wizarding universe.
Oh, I would love to go to the Japanese school. That'd be really cool.
Or the any of the schools really would be really interesting. I feel like there's a lot of cool stories and like flesh out the universe because there's a lot of inconsistencies, a lot of things that don't make any sense in the Harry Potter universe.
One of my favorite things, and that's why I want to go to the Japanese schools because I think it's one of the ones that doesn't use wands.
The African school, one of the African schools
doesn't
use wands.
I just like that. It's like because you're going through, you're like only thinking wands are a thing, but like wands were a thing for your Europe, and so any of those countries like Russia and Sweden, was that the girls' school?
France,
and then even the U.S. school. All use wands. I think that's like a very popular thing, but it's not the only way to do it. And I think
they consider it like a useful tool, but it is not.
Yeah, it helps direct it a lot more than not.
Yeah,
and helps with certain spells. But it's like there are whole other areas that like go off of different things, and some schools that are very specific towards like healing. I think that's the Japanese or the African.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories that could be explored in that universe. It would be. I would love to read.
I mean,
just like the Star Wars universe. There's like a ton of people writing books in the Star Wars universe that are canon. It would just be really nice to see for another big universe.
Well, it's like, oh, the big bad guys are all from Europe. It's like, really? There's none in China? There's none in like Japan? There's none in Africa? There's none anywhere else in the world with big bad guys, military people who are utilizing magic and muggles and all these other stuff in other ways. And
if they just started writing different stories, like if other people had the opportunity to write these stories, I think it would be awesome. I think there's a lot that you can tell.
Well, and I just told you this. So they just released a book that goes into the Avatar universe, Avatar: Last Airbender and Legend of Korra. It's about Avatar Kyoshi, which we got to see very briefly for Avatar: Last Airbender, but it's written by someone else other than the guys who came up with the original story and everything like that.
So you're thinking like anime to book.
Well, like this one is just a. I mean,
it's not a conversion.
I'm just saying, like into someone who's telling another story within the same universe. Like it can happen and still work out. Like it doesn't have to be J.K. Rowling doing all this, and like she can work with somebody, she can talk to them, and then like kind of give off the reins. I think he was talking about like it was really hard to do that with his thing because there's that fear of like, what if it's really bad? Now it's part of my series. Yeah, and it's fucked now.
There are
and it does suck, but like there are like tons of people that help work out. I even think like with Jurassic Park when they're doing the expanded universe with their websites and stuff with the Jurassic Worlds coming out, they got these two guys who helped expand the universe for it a lot more, so you can dig in. Like, they're talking about like the DNAs and like what percentages they had done for different dinosaurs after Jurassic Park, and they're going through and you find out a lot more of like the history of certain creatures and stuff that weren't featured on film, and a lot of information that wasn't there on film or in the comics or in other other series and stuff like that. And like, you can have people work on these extended things, you just have to give them the trust. And I think that'd be really cool to see within the Harry Potter universe, people working on films that are within the series that aren't done by J.K. Rowling, maybe worked with, but and kind of like advised through. But
I think there's a lot of authors that are better than J.K. Rowling.
Oh yeah,
like, she did create a really good story and a really good universe, and it was great. Probably better than anything I'll produce anytime soon. However, as far as like a strong author goes, she's not top tier. She's not the strongest. Like, you know what I mean? Like, she makes good young adult novels, which aren't generally super planned out. They're not as complex and universe based as some other, like, Lord of the Rings would be.
You're
right, where someone's created a whole language while writing a book.
Right, exactly. So, I think there's plenty of people who are more capable than J.K. Rowling at expanding the universe. Some people are just like, they can write a good story, but they're bad at creating universes.
Right.
It happens. Like, what is it? The Game of Thrones series. That's a common one for that. It's like, yeah, the universe is really good, but it's not great. It's not perfect. There's a lot of small things that could be. It's expansive, but it could be done better.
right.
So then I guess we've been talking about like good ones.
Good ones always come from books to visual media.
Well, yeah. But I mean, there are bad things. Like, I guess the only one I can really think of, I don't know if there are any others that I can think of at the moment, which is Aragon, which is always a very big one for people. That was just like, the conversion from book to movie was horrific. And I mean, it just probably wasn't good to do that with. Like, they probably shouldn't have done it, honestly. I don't think that every book should go into a movie. Maybe it should never be converted at all. I guess that's a big thing, is like, when should we know when to convert something, or when is okay to convert something and when isn't. But like, Aragon messed up on a couple different things of like introducing characters at the appropriate timing, killing off characters at the appropriate timing, even like their time lapse. They just decided not to do. Like, there's a whole time lapse where the main character, I don't know, have you read Aragon or anything? Have you?
I've read. Yeah.
Okay, so
this is gonna be a discussion between you two.
So
it's been forever.
I mean, we'll explain it to you, but like, and I mean, yeah, it's been a while for me too. But like, one of my bigger things was like, so he gets this egg, and it hatches, and he raises this dragon till she's an adult. And so that's a big thing, is him raising this and the struggles that he's doing to keep it kind of secret at the whole time and stuff. And dragons aren't a big thing in this world anymore. They're all but gone. The dragon riders and everything like that are not really big anymore. In the movie, what took, I don't know, it was like either like almost a full year or maybe a little bit longer than a year. It's somewhere around that range. It took a really long time. It took like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
They just have her like as a baby fly up into the air and then land, and then she's in a full-grown like dragon with like very complex thinking and thoughts. It's like, let's get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh well, all the learning that he did to try and raise this, and the deep connection he has with this dragon, gone out the window.
Yeah.
There's another
character.
Yeah, there's another character where like he's like with his teacher, and his teacher eventually dies, and they bury him, all this other stuff, and then he meets another character right after that's like his brother or something like that, like long lost brother, or I can't remember what his connection was. But in the movie, they decided to introduce him, then kill off the guy, and then they just never went back to that character, I think. And it was just like really weird with how they did it, because like the structure of the importance of having these characters be met and then die off in this order was more important than.
Do you think it goes back to what I was saying before? It's like having a good reason to make this. What do you think the reason was for making the movie? Does it feel like they had passion in it and they wanted to tell the story, or did it feel like they were just making it because it's popular?
I think they were just. I think
the latter.
Yeah, no, I think it was definitely making it because it was a young adult novel that was very mythical. They wanted to make like a...
Was it made at around the same time that like YA books were really big?
The movie came out in like 2004, I want to say.
When did Hunger Games come out?
2008, I want to say.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
I think this was coming off
It was
of
a
Harry
little early.
Potter more than it
Oh,
was.
I can see that.
So it was coming off of Harry Potter more rather than Pottermore.
Harry
Then
Potter more.
it was like the Hunger Games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
but it was really weird. But like, they had like, it wasn't even like they were trying to tell it. Like, it just seemed like someone was like given a book and they're like, make a movie out of this. And he's like, right away, sir. You know,
Right.
and just like, hey, fellas, we got to make this movie.
Yeah.
What's it about? Well, it's about a kid with a dragon. It's like, what?
Like it was assigned to them rather than somebody coming.
Yeah,
from
no, it feels
at
very
a-
assigned to them, and I mean, they put in a lot more work into it than like I feel like a lot of other people who've been assigned something, which will kind of, I guess, move into the next thing, like Dragon Ball Evolution.
Yes.
That is
probably
I think,
one of the worst conversions, but like anime to movie or anime to TV show tends to go really poorly. Almost as poor as video game to movie.
right. Well, and so like and that one was bad. I think that one was like not even in the same caliber as that. And I mean, the guy's come forward and he says, "Hey guys, I'm sorry, I didn't realize what I was fucking up."
Yeah.
And he's like, "I'm sorry, I didn't realize that this was this important when I got it."
Didn't realize it was probably the most popular series at the time.
Right. It's like
Just behind One Piece.
it is the reason why anime is in the US.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, no, he went through, kind of breezed through. He's like, all right, I think I get it. And then went through, and then you're like, you watch it, like, you did not get this at all.
Yeah, it was completely wrong.
You have no fucking clue what the fuck you were doing.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yeah, there's hints of the world in there, but like
It was very much just an assignment.
yeah, and it
It was like, get this done, we'll make money, it's fine.
right. And so I mean, that one was like, first off, it wasn't in the right medium. It wasn't the right series to try and do that with. Like a slice of life in anime, I think would be a lot better to convert over to live action.
I agree, yeah.
Than anything that's going to have action. I just think that's because anime already, because you're taking it from a manga, which is just giving you a storyboard of everything. It's just like a really well written storyboard.
Mm-hmm.
You know, mangas are just, and comics in general, just really well written storyboards for anyone. And then the cartoons is just equally taking it from there with the same art style a lot of times, and then moving it over and kind of filling in those gaps.
Yeah, sometimes making it a lot
And
better.
then the reason why they can be so good with a lot of details is because you can draw it to exactly how you want it.
Right.
You know, you can get it the exact effects, the exact color, the exact emotion, you know, versus acting. Like, you can't always get someone to do the acting face that you want them to do. You can't get the CGI to just do what you want it to do, or you know, make everything look as fluid with it, you know. And so I think already there is converting from an actioned cartoon or anime to a live action is always going to be very hard. Especially
there's a lot of things that work in anime that can never work live action. Like a lot of emotions in anime are extremely exaggerated, and you just can't do that. Especially like happy characters in anime, you can never pull off that same level of emotion in a live action.
Right.
Maybe like dramatic, like angry or sad fight scenes you can pull off.
and I think
But yeah, it's like it just seems awkward. It's like when you meet like super hardcore weeaboos, and they try to be anime characters, and it just doesn't work, and it's just
Nani?
obnoxious.
Well, that kind of comes back as like, well, are you taking the themes or the story? It seems like if you want to go from anime to a live action movie, you want to take the story and not the themes,
so.
because themes don't transfer outside of anime.
I think it's the other way around. I feel like I would rather take a theme than the story.
Are you going to take the theme of a super happy character and overblow that?
That's the thing about a theme is a theme doesn't have to be beat for beat what it is. You just need to portray the same emotion.
So yeah, and
you need to make the person watching it feel the same thing, and that's the whole reason for having the same theme. Is it allows you to get the same response out of a different action, essentially.
But yeah, so I mean, they're kind of utilizing things off of it, and they still work really well. I guess like Monster Hunter's coming out, and that seems like it's gonna do well. Like a lot of those, I think video games can do better when they pick the right one.
I want to pick your brain about this. Why do you think Monster Hunter is going to be good? Because the only footage we've seen was a leaked trailer from a convention, and it was literally somebody walking through a desert and a dragon shows up. So why do you think that's going to be good?
Well,
based off of the limited information you have.
Well, I've read some stuff on the story, but so, and I guess you're right. Yeah, I can't really know until it comes out and stuff, and there is a lot of going through, and they're keeping it very quiet. But I think that one can do better because the game itself isn't set on any specific one person. I think those can do a lot better when transferring those over, because they can just tell the story of a character that's just in the same world.
Yeah, it's much more open-ended.
Yeah, there's you're in an open world. Or I guess like Warcraft, like I think is arguably, whether it's good or bad, but I think a lot of people
could have done well.
Yeah, but people enjoyed it because like they were just telling a story within the world, and they didn't have to focus on any type of character, and like things like Resident Evil and stuff like that, which have
they're basically stories that could have been made without the original media.
Right. It's pure theme.
Yeah.
And they're making up their own original story.
So
it is not pure theme. It is pure world.
Yeah. So like the theme is like
because there is no theme to the games. A theme is essentially
is there, though?
No. As far as I know, there's not a theme.
Unless
they're trying to be like killing monsters is wrong.
For like an open world one, there's usually no theme to it.
Yeah.
Isn't the theme just killing monsters and having the aesthetic of that specific monster in this specific world?
You could argue. I'd say that's what you do, but I would not say that's the theme. There are things that don't have a theme that can do well. Like there's no theme of Tetris. You know what I mean?
But so you remember the anime I was watching the other day with like the fucking huge ass weapons and shit? I had a huge monster coming out of the clouds. I was like, dude, yesterday I kept telling so many times, I'm like, dude, you gotta look at this, you gotta look at this.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, regardless if you remember it, so it's actually based off of a video game. But the video game was like an open world where you created your own character, and it was just in this world. And that one actually, I think, as an anime, did pretty all right because they didn't have to focus on any specific character or any specific thing. They just focused on the world itself, and then had their own characters that they had in this world doing a thing, you know. And it never, like, at the end of it, never led to the solution of the whole world. You know, like the person you were following was never the hero. They were a hero of a situation, but they were never a hero of the full conflict of the world. I think that's also another thing, is like when you're having those, like, you're not trying to do like what a first person video game or a video game that follows a very specific person through something like Halo or something like that, who's trying to solve the bigger problem, you know. I think that's one of the things, like, you can't convert those stories like that.
Yeah, especially video games to other media, either shows or movies. You really have to do something different. It's not the same, because the way games play out, because they play out the way they do because a player is playing the game. You cannot have the same type of interaction, and it feel the same if you're just watching somebody do it, essentially.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work in movies. That's why you have to do something totally different.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Halo, it's like a mini-series.
Or the Fall of Reach one.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with Master Chief. Like that's why it did.
He's like in it minorly, but that's just because like he was in that scenario.
Yeah, it's
too.
more like, by the way, this is the same universe,
right?
Which is why like Warcraft and Monster Hunter can do well, because that's even more open-ended than Halo.
And I think
they can do basically as long as they maintain the consistency of the world, they can do whatever they want.
And I think like things like was it Gundam, I would hope and imagine would do well too, even though that one does have a very specific main character and very specific stuff, because it's been redone within the series so often. Like that's one where it's like more like American comics, where like they've done Gundam so many different times. You have Gundam Wing, Gundam Blood Orphan, you have a bunch of these Gundam stories that utilize very similar things within the world, but completely change everything else, the characters, stuff like that. So that one can do well because they don't have to follow, yet again, a specific person, a specific story that's already been told. They can just tell their own story within the same world. And I think that follows along with I'm going to have to come back to that. But yeah.
That's why I think it's funny when people complain about comic book movies, because they'll argue like, oh, this was originally in the comics. It's like, no, it's been done 8 different times in 8 different ways in the comics. You don't know what you're talking about.
Final Fantasy. That's what I was thinking of. Like the Final Fantasy games, like they can reboot the Final Fantasy series over and over and over and over and over again because they just stick with like similar things like weapon
When did
names.
they reboot the series?
That's another remake that's coming
Well,
out.
like they just like add a new one into the series. Like they like, I guess not reboot, but like they just add another one to the series.
It's just like it's another story in the same universe.
Yeah. Well, it's another story. It's like a lot of the times it's not even like in this. It's like like the general universe itself. It's not on the same planet or in the same world and stuff like that. It's just like they're using. Yeah, this world has chocobos too, and this world uses these magics, and this world uses these weapons. But everything else, the doom of the planet, all the villains and heroes and all this stuff are completely
they're all different people.
Different, and it's like they can keep doing that over and over again because they've already established that like they can tell as many different stories as they want. They just use these same things. Or the Tales of series does the same thing where they just keep redoing the series over and over again. They're like, all right, get a new game in there, new planet, new world, new theme. Let's figure out what this. They set a theme up, they redo the story, and then the most is you have very similar weapons, very similar magic. With things, but they just change it up.
It's just the rules of the story.
Yeah, and I think they can do those really well. I think those are the stories that, for at least video games and anime and stuff, if you're gonna do that, if you can find those types of series, those are gonna be the really well done ones.
I think some things like the Persona anime series, the way they did that works really well because like the games are made in a way so you can put yourself in the character. So the character tends to be very bland and you basically make the decisions of how this character is going to act. But in the anime, they kind of flip it where like this character is just really strange, as if multiple other people are being this person and like no one's really in control of them. So the character can do just something like off the wall, but if you understand the games, it makes sense, and it just like it adds like another level of like this character's like super stoic all the time, but then like suddenly they're like in a dress and pretending to be a girl. It's hilarious because it's like, oh yeah, you can totally do that in the games because it's just this blank canvas character.
Right.
It's fun. They kind of like flip that whole idea on its head. It's like, oh, we'll keep it the same in a different way.
I think the Tales of series does. They have a couple animes too off of their video games that go through, and I think those do okay because first off, like the game itself is very anime already, and storytelling of anime cutscenes, and the characters are done very anime, but they already kind of know what the story is going to be, and they just add more detail to those bland moments that you would think of, or like a battle that would happen. You're like, all right, yeah, I defeated this thing. What the fuck of it? But then they like make those more elaborate and more detailed and cooler, and those in between traveling moments where your character's just running around the map and stuff, and you have a quick dialogue, you skip past, and you move forward. It's like okay, good night, and you're like, what the
Parkour.
Yeah, it's like they didn't say anything. It's like stop there, and then I will defeat you, and it's like sorry. But it's these skip moments, so they actually focus on those more within the series rather than a lot of the bigger events that they've already told and stuff. And they'll have those in there, but it's like, yeah, you already seen this, but we want to show those in between things, and this will be a cooler thing.
Right, just add to it.
Yeah, I guess like going into like with comics, with going to live action, where it's like, yeah, these already been told a billion different times, and that goes in, I guess, into the view of like having those expectations for a series and stuff like that. It's just like, when you know it's something that's going to be a reboot or a retelling of something, like how do you usually go into them? Like for you, like going into like any of like the Marvel movies.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was saying. Like you have to understand that they may be based off of a particular series, but you have to understand that it's essentially a different universe, and it's not going to be told the same way. You shouldn't expect it to be told the same way. You shouldn't expect it to have the same theme. It is a different story made by a different person with the same characters. That's why I tend to like a lot of rebooted series more than a lot of other people, because they don't get that. They're like, this is supposed to be Spider-Man. He's supposed to do these things because this is how the story was. And I'm like, listen, you don't know what you're talking about, because your reference point is from a particular series of the comic books,
right,
when there's already been 4 or 5 other versions of it. Like, I think it's hilarious when people argue whether Gwen Stacy or
Mary Jane.
Mary Jane came first. It's like, well, neither of them came first, right? That's
from different things.
Yeah, Spider-Man, like he
was with someone else
he
before
doesn't
either
get,
of them.
He doesn't get with either of them. He goes through 2 other girls and doesn't get with either of those other, of Gwen Stacy or Mary Jane until like chapter 60, which is already like a few years into the series, because they would only come out with 1 comic a month.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, it's just hilarious when you hear people argue about that. It's like, you're both wrong. Especially when someone tries to argue with me about that. And I'm like, look, it's a different universe, and I know Spider-Man really well. Just trust me.
Right. But at the same time, comics kind of have that liberty because they've been around forever, and they've had so many different passionate people working on those stories. The MCU can pull from any comic book run they want for ideas and get inspiration from that stuff to implement it into their the MCU.
They do a lot.
Yeah, they do. Like the whole what are they talking about? This whole Thanos saga was heavily inspired by like a specific comic book run, but they still took a lot of inspiration from other things outside of that comic book run. So they have the space to make a new story and retell it in this new medium, and they actually have a lot of creative freedoms to play around with these pre-established characters.
Yeah. But people still give them shit for not following the comics. Like, I didn't like that because,
Yeah.
Iron Man would have Extremis on him, and like Iron Man.
That kind of stuff is very niche. I mean, like, I personally, I don't really read a lot of comics, so I can't go to source material and complain about that. But it's just kind of like this weird thing, like, especially with how oversaturated superhero movies are nowadays. But like there's other stories where they don't have that liberty, where it's like maybe there's a single run of an anime or a show or whatever that they want to revamp, and it's like, okay, well, we have literally nothing else other than this one source. Are we just going to rip that off or try and tell something new in the space? Which, maybe flashback to the 1940s comic books might have been in the same area where they're like, here's Superman, an established character. Are we going to have him like lift a car for the millionth time, or are we going to give him a new superpower?
Yeah. You just reminded me of an anime series I was watching that I totally forgot about, and it is excellent. It's called Dororo. And it is Dororo. It is so good, and it's based off of a manga and anime from like the 1940s or something like that. Yeah, it's awesome. But yeah, I digress.
But I guess that falls into like why are you recreating this one anime series at a short run, or manga series at a short run? Does it really need it? Right. Do we really need it?
What is your personal reason for creating
this? And that becomes like a big thing. It's like, what's your reason? And if your reason isn't strong enough, then you probably shouldn't work on it.
Right. If you're not passionate about creating this thing, you shouldn't do it.
Right.
Just because like fans want it or anything like that, like that really shouldn't dictate how it is. If, like, you really want to see this series as a live action, like, or completed story or expanded on, like, then it'll probably, with, unless you're just really shit at it, come out good. You know, but like your passion will not be put into question if you actually put that in there and you actually had the right reasons on why you're wanting to create it. I guess this then falls on to like Alita, which I talked about a lot in the first episode, which is like Alita had a lot of passion going into it by
Dude Bros Anonymous.
Peter Jackson.
Peter Jackson.
He did Avatar, right?
No.
Steven Spielberg.
Not Steven Spielberg.
Who am I thinking of?
J.J. Abrams.
J.J. Abrams. There we go.
Are you sure?
God damn it.
I didn't watch this movie.
God damn it.
You guys went to go see Alita, and I was like,
Who made Avatar?
Which Avatar?
Avatar.
Blue people.
Blue people Avatar?
Not The Last Airbender.
James Franco.
No, it wasn't James Franco.
That's a complete lie. I want to say J.J. Abrams.
I think you might be right. Who made Titanic?
James Cameron.
We are all wrong.
Wow. I had every other...
We are all wrong.
To be fair, I never said it was any of them. I was like, I think we're wrong.
But James Cameron... Okay, so James Cameron...
My God, we're going to get roasted.
Had a lot of love for Alita.
Which is weird. Like, you would not expect that.
No, I still wanted... I hope he talks about it in the 4K Blu-ray release, because I'm buying that.
He's like a super geek about it.
Yeah, no, but that's the thing, is like, it's like from like what I've read about it is he was a super geek about it, and he had the script written and finished, and it was either that or Avatar at the moment that was going to be made.
Yeah.
And he just chose Avatar and then just held on to that until eventually he handed off to Rodriguez, and Rodriguez worked on it and so forth. But the love that James Cameron put into it really shows when you watch the movie,
Yeah,
because
it was done with passion.
it was done with passion. It was done well. Things like
I expected it to be bad because there are so many of those manga to movie conversions that are just awful because they're just cash grabs. But
And-
this
Yeah.
one was done with passion, and you can tell. It's like I can't even point out what is different from this to other things, but you can just feel it. It's,
right. And I went through, and before the movie came out, I was like, I want to watch this because I'm huge in anime. So I was like, I want to try and give this a chance. So I read the manga, almost both of them, because they kind of did one manga, finished it, and then they decided to rewind like 20 chapters and then start again from that point. So what is it?
They Brotherhood it.
They Brotherhooded
it.
Brotherhooded it.
They Brotherhooded it. But yeah, so they kind of redid that. But like, you can tell what points they try to keep in as much, the bigger storytelling points. There were like time gaps, like a lot more time goes by in the manga rather than in the movie. The movie takes place like within a week. Like
Yeah.
the whole story's a week, which usually annoys the living shit out of me within movies when they're like, 24 hours, all this stuff happens. It's like, no fucking way that fucking happened.
Yeah.
You would have been stuck in traffic for at least 5 of those fucking hours down in LA. They're
Yeah.
like, we gotta go, and they're like swerving through like clear traffic at like, you're like, no. But this one, like, it's like a week, and you're like, oh, this is annoying. But this one, I didn't notice that because I was just engaged the whole time, and I was just like, oh my god, I love that point. Oh, they did that so well. I love how they did that and told the story that way, or did this character's whole thing with it, and they kind of move forward.
You can change a lot as long as you have passion.
Yeah. And it's like they knew what to keep, they knew what to change within the way that they were trying to do it. I think Rodriguez even took the script that James Cameron had and gave him and had to shorten it down quite a bit more. But he left it in such a way that if they wanted to continue on with the story, they could and do a second movie. So I think that's also another thing is that he tried to do is make sure that if it got picked up well enough, it gave them a chance to do a second one. But if this was the only one that happened, you weren't left like, where's the second movie?
Yeah.
So
like Aragon.
It was open-ended enough.
Yeah, it was open.
I think it's hilarious when they do that. Like, when they end a movie, they're like, this is definitely going to have a sequel, and it bombs. Like the Fantastic Four reboot.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
that
Fantastic.
bombed so hard.
It did bomb. That, and it's funny because like that one gets on my time thing where I'm like, I enjoyed it because they did their whole learning their powers thing, but they just gave like a huge time gap randomly, and you didn't have to re-watch them learn all their.
You have a special place in your heart for large time gaps in media.
Especially, it's just I don't know. It's just annoying. I don't know. I've started to really get annoyed when things just take place over small.
They're just too quick.
Yeah, it's like the Avengers last one was like, oh yeah, there was a lot of time that kept like moving through, and they kept having huge jumps in it. So it's like them making a huge plan, or them having like the world coming up to this endpoint and things changing in such a way doesn't seem so out of place. I think that's my biggest thing. It's like a lot of those things. It's like this is just so out of place. Like you haven't slept for 48 hours. Like no.
Yeah, agreed.
I don't know. It's kind of funny. I think that viewpoint's really funny because,
I'll try to not let it.
Yeah.
I try to not let it.
Want to elaborate on that?
I elaborate on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Double yeah.
It's I don't know. I think it depends on the story because I definitely agree that things benefit from large time gaps. Retroactive spoiler alert for in-game, but the whole 5-year jump, it made sense. And after the 5-year jump, you had really like 15 minutes of reintroducing these characters, and these are established characters. You've been with them for the entire span of the MCU, and you have this 5-year gap of time after a very devastating event. So you have to check back in with these characters.
People,
they're different people. You want to see how each of them changed and dealt with this huge travesty they just went through. Yeah. And so it makes sense for that huge span of time. And then it's really fun to pick back up with those characters.
Well, and it's like I'm fine if things do take, like it is like if it's appropriately added or not added in there. It's like I feel like some things you do need a larger time gap within these. Like the story's just like this is really hard to believe when you're just going event after event after event after event. It's
right.
Like,
but like how Captain Marvel went from like kind of a normal-ish superhero to a god in like a couple days.
Yeah, for sure. But it's funny because like I've seen people do storytelling where it takes place over 24 hours and it does make sense and it does work for that point that they're going for.
Yeah, and I mean,
you have to be somewhat realistic with your time frame.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm fine with those. I mean, there's just a lot of movies that they want to have a huge action scene that takes them all across the world on this stuff, and then it's just like you really look into it, and you're like, holy shit, this went from Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
Like you could have probably added more time into this and built up on the characters, maybe had them grow a little bit more or deal with some more things.
How do you do that without montages, though? Because montages can definitely
it's either
be
a time
cheesy.
jump or a montage.
Yeah. Like, well, Fantastic Four had, I think, 3 different science montages. So it's like, all right, it's getting a little bad.
Yeah.
They had like 2 science montages and a training montage. It's like, can we tell the story in a different way, please?
It's either that or like, I think like older, God, I don't even know what to call them. All I can think of is slice of life is a way to say it. But like older movies that just like aren't really built on a ton of.
So otaku.
I know, it's bad.
You're like, I don't even know
Just talking.
American genres.
I'm like sitting here like, God fucking
I mean,
damn it.
slice of life is.
You're like, I mean, SAO.
But it's just like it's like non-action based movies that are like they're dealing more with the people and the what they're
They're
dealing
usually
with.
called dramas.
feel good movies, dramas. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just like like a lot of times they just don't say like when they are or when it is and stuff like that. You know, it's just like they just like you're just picking up at different points within their life, and they just don't even try to tell you other than, oh yeah, you want to go to the movies Tuesday?
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, they're going to the movies now, and it's like, all right, it's probably Tuesday, but they don't tell you when, what Tuesday. You know, they're never like, we only have 48 hours to get this done.
Yeah.
It's like, I think those are really well done. It's like, just don't even tell me how long it was from time to time period, and just tell a story. It doesn't matter how long it takes.
That always bothers me when movies give a specific date for things in the future, because you know it's never going to happen. You know, like Back to the Future. That was like 2014 or something like that.
Yeah.
Back to the Future 3. Or was it 2? I think it was 2.
Are you talking about when he places a bet on the Cubs winning?
No, well, when the movie is based in the future. I believe it's Back to the Future 2.
It's 2018.
2018
is when it was.
Yeah. So it's like, just don't put specific dates on things that happen in the future. They should just be arbitrarily in the future. So once in reality we hit that level of technology, that's when that movie was based.
Mm-hmm.
Not 2020.
Yeah.
Or 2085. That ruins everything.
2077.
It's like, oh, all this cool technology. Like, yeah, the future's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah,
and then just leave it at that. Like,
yeah,
the
exactly.
2018 is amazing, isn't it? It's like, yeah, you fucked yourself over there.
Yeah, it's like, look at all these idiots. They thought we would have this crazy technology by this time.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, going back to like the betting thing and stuff like that. It's just like, that'd been fine if it was like within the next 2 years or something like that. After like they went back, it wasn't like a full thing leading up to that point in time, because that was like where it kind of ruined it. If it's like, oh yeah, like here's all the betting things for this whole year, and it's like, oh, he just made a shit ton of money within a year, you know, and then just invested it all, you know, would have been fine. But
yeah,
I don't know. That's my I know it's a weird thing, and I fight it often with my whole hatred for like short
time periods.
But like I do like try to recognize when it was needed, when it wasn't.
Yeah, it's like,
I don't let
mostly just don't tell me about it.
Yeah, so just don't tell me. I think that's another thing. It's like Alita doesn't actually mention it all. It's just like breaking it down, because it is very. I think the only time like, oh yeah, like you've only been awake for since yesterday. It's like, ooh.
Yeah, there was one that was a weird point. It's like I assumed it was over a long period of time.
Yeah.
And then like they bring up how long it had actually been, and I'm like, oh, that ruined everything. Now it's weird how fast things are happening.
So it's like if they wouldn't have had that, like them telling the story would have been perfectly fine.
It would have felt more comfortable and less jarring.
I was actually watching something, and they're actually talking to in Alita, there's a character that they kind of show off, and he's just in like the roller derby thing, like a blonde hair. He's in a suit, and they're like working on him. And he's like, that's that guy. He's like the best one. I guess Rodriguez had picked that actor, and that actor was talking about that part, and he's like, yeah, I didn't play anything, but he's just like, hey, I want you to play a part, and it won't have anything done in this movie, but I want to make sure that if I continue this movie, because this character will be bigger in the next movie if it does come about, and I want to make sure I have a good actor for that. So he pre-planned an actor to play a small cameo scene in the first movie.
That's really cool.
Just in case the second movie went off, he could make sure that he had the actor he wanted for that character.
I wish they did that more.
Yeah.
Because it's always weird. It's always like they did that a lot in Game of Thrones, where they would just switch actors completely for the same characters.
Yeah.
Like, and a lot of time I didn't even realize it was the same character. I'm like, who is this guy? Where'd they come from? Why is he so friendly with these other characters? Yeah, they did that with the Mountain 3 times.
Yeah. Yeah, the Mountain, yeah, had many different...
Yeah.
But no, it's like that's also showing like the passion, the forward thinking, like that they were having with
really
it.
cool.
I think like Harry Potter did that a lot. Like they were thinking of characters that could, like when they were picking like the older characters, the characters that are like already grown and stuff. Like there's not going to be much changes between them within the movies. Like Snape, I can't remember his name.
The actor?
The actor.
Alan Rickman.
Alan Rickman. They picked Alan Rickman because they knew he would be able to play Snape through the whole things and was be able to change his character properly through the whole things, but like he himself didn't have to change and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they kind of like they thought about the actors that they were picking at that time for like McGonagall and Dumbledore and all this other stuff, you know, making sure that like these characters would be able to play throughout the series, even if the series kept changing, and they were like really forward thinking with a lot of their actors in those things. The only time actors had to change was when something happened to that actor itself and they couldn't come back.
Yeah.
And I think there's like a social show Spartacus on Stars. That was one where like the actors both did really well who played Spartacus, but they only had to change it because something had happened to the actor.
Oh, right. I forgot about that.
They had cancer. The guy got the part for Spartacus while he knew he had like terminal cancer. They don't remember. I think it was like stage 3 or 4, but like he had cancer and he was just like, yeah, I'll play it. And like you look at the show and this guy's fucking built and you're like, this guy is dying from cancer?
Yeah.
What the fuck? You know, and he's just like, he wasn't doing chemo or anything. I don't think he was doing chemo or anything like that. He was just like,
Did he end up dying?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a whole special that they have with him. They have what's her place who played Xena, Warrior Princess and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And a bunch of other people talk from the show who worked with him and stuff like that, and his family and everything like that. But like his whole thing was like spend time with his family. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the podcast. We really appreciate the time you take to listen to our ridiculous ramblings. If you like what you heard and you want to let us know, give us suggestions, or even just to say hi, you can reach out to us through our website at NogCast.fm, through our Twitter, Reddit, or Discord, or you can email us at nogcast.fm@gmail.com. You can also find us on YouTube, Instagram, and iTunes. We also have all these links to all these sites, plus any sources discussed during the podcast.